Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the iWorkinSport live interview. This is the show where we talk to accomplished sport business professionals who come here to share their knowledge, experience, tips, and advice in order to help you succeed in your career. My name is João Frigerio. I'm the founder of iWorkinSport, and I want to thank you for being here with us today. Let me know if this is your first time or if you've been here before. If you're coming back, if you could let me know in the comments, that would be great. We always ask people also to let us know where they're watching from. So we normally have a very international crowd. So if you could let us know where you're watching from. Also, for everyone in the future watching the replay, also leave a comment, let us know. We check all of them. Also, we would, if you're into this type of content, the interviews about the business, today we're going to talk about a super important topic, which is diversity and inclusion in the sport, in the business of sport. If you're interested in any of that, hit that like button there, subscribe to our channel. That's definitely helps us grow and to help us serve you better too. So I don't know if you know iWorkinSport. So if you're new here, you might not. We're basically a platform made to help you boost your career in sport. So if you want to work in sport, or if you already work in sport, we're here to help you either way. Mainly, we organize events. A few weeks ago, we had a virtual job fair. We also have education expos, in-person or physical events as well. So check our website, iWorkinSport.com, for more information. We also produce a lot of valuable content. If you're looking for a place to work and want to know how they rate or what are the most attractive employers in sport, you can check out a study that we published recently. It's the most attractive employers in sport. If you go to iWorkinSport.com, you'll find more about it there. For that study, we surveyed more than 1,000 people, but it's not only the survey results. There are trends, there are interviews with recruiters from companies like Bayern Munich, IMG, Infront, FIFA, the IOC, FIBA, and others. Again, go to iWorkinSport.com to check all of that. We're, in addition to the website and in addition to YouTube, where I presume you're watching this, we're on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Everywhere you'll find us at iWorkinSport. On LinkedIn, there's also a group, a community there called We Work in Sport. So look for us there too. Anyway, enough about iWorkinSport. Let me introduce you to my guest today. We're going to talk with Alex Norman. He's an accomplished lawyer specialized in sport, media, entertainment, and technology. Has a large international experience. Is from the UK, but now based in Hong Kong, where we're going to find him in a minute. He leads Bird & Birds sports and media practice in Asia Pacific. If you don't know, Bird & Birds is one of the big law firms that have an important sports practice. He's going to tell us more about that too. And he's a champion for diversity, equality, and inclusion in the professional work environment, and has recently founded a community called Diversity in the Business of Sport, or DiBS or DiBS. That's the main thing that we're going to talk about, that and many more. So without further ado, let me invite Alex to join us, as you know, just after this. Hello, Alex. Welcome.
Hi, João. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing? Thank you for being here with us.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to join you. And good afternoon, good evening, good morning to your viewers as well, which I hope there are many.
Yeah, there's already some of them saying hi here, so let me know. I'll show you where they're who's here with us at the moment. So Anna, let us know where you're watching from. It says hello, Robert from Breda, at the office from European Football for Development Network. Thank you for being here with us. We have also Yuri Dominguez from Brazil. Also Otacílio and Regina Justo, both of them in Barra Bonita, Brazil. Thank you for being here with us. There's Oscar, project manager from the International Sports Convention. Hello, Oscar. Thank you for being here. Who else? Audrey in Belgium. Mamé, Paulo in Brazil as well. We have, well, me being Brazilian, we do have a nice following in Brazil. And a good friend of ours, Nick Lau, here in Zurich as well. Thank you for being here, guys and girls. And Alex, before we jump into the DiBS, the diversity in the sport, in the business of sport, super important initiative from you. I would like you to introduce yourself to people watching us. So you give us a short summary of your career.
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on. I guess you did a wonderful job of it in the introduction, but I'm currently a sports media, entertainment and tech lawyer based in Hong Kong. I've spent the majority of my career, professional career, as a lawyer. I started in London, not working in sport, and then sort of transitioned to sport, having worked in a large corporate firm for a while, and have enjoyed every minute of it since I transferred into a sort of more sport-focused environment. And so, yeah, found myself in Hong Kong in 2016, having got a brilliant chance to come and help build a business over here for the firm I work at. And then, as we'll talk about a bit later, one of the things that I've started with a really great group of people is Diverse in the Business of Sport, or DiBS, which is really just a network of people aimed at sort of increasing diversity in the business of sport in which we all work or hope to work. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be here with you today and sort of to talk about all of that and a bit more, I'm sure.
Great, great. So you studied politics before in university, is that?
Yeah, if you go far back, I started as a history and politics undergraduate in a university in the UK. So that was the starting
and then
point.
Law. And how did you went to sports? How did that happen? Why? Maybe first,
Yeah, sure.
did you go and try to specialize in the sports area, and how did that transition occur?
Well, I guess to sort of rewind a bit, sort of like a lot of lawyers, you tread a fairly well-trodden path to become a lawyer. You have to go to law school. You have to get, in the UK, what's known as a training contract, a law firm, sort of train to be a lawyer and train in the practices of being a lawyer. So I did that. I was in a firm which was an incredibly large, very well-respected, and frankly, just a really good firm to be in and to learn my trade. I was there for 5 years or so, and in that time, I worked across loads of industries, from sort of consumer retail to insurance to lots of different things, both in London and in Hong Kong. Now, I think I reached a point, as a lot of people do in their careers, where you sort of evaluate where you are and you think about what really drives you. And for me, what really drove me, I think, was that real underlying connection with the businesses which I worked with. And so, as someone who's loved sport their whole life and continues to and has always played a lot of sport, I found a real connection with the business side of sport, right? And so worked really hard, building my network to find an opportunity where I could do the professional side of what I do, so the law part, alongside the sort of more the passion side, I guess, which is sport. And I was lucky enough to find that opportunity at a sort of specialised law firm in London, which just dealt with sports and media clients. They gave me opportunity, and kind of the rest is history, as they say. But I think, like a lot of people, what draws you to the industry is really a passion for the underlying product. And to be honest, it plays out. Like, everyone you meet is passionate about what they do. you have a shared interest, a common interest, and that's just a wonderful thing, right? It makes when I speak to my clients and see my contacts around, it just makes it a great set of people to speak to, and I love the industry and continue to do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And when did you join Bird and Bird?
So I joined Bird and Bird, which in 2016. So I was in London, I was in deepest, darkest London in the winter of 2015, early 2016, and had a call to join Bird and Bird, but actually out in Hong Kong, where I'd been for a few months, 6 months or so, when I was training as a lawyer, and just had a fantastic opportunity to come out here and do a few things. One of which was sport and technology work, and to try and really help build a practice here. For those of your viewers who have come across the firm I work at before, you'll know that in Europe we're incredibly well regarded for our sports practice, and have some really fantastic people there. And the aim was really to kind of replicate that a little bit in Asia, and to just work a bit harder at building a base of clients out here. And lucky enough to say that we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that over the last 5 years. And yeah, just build a really nice base of clients and contacts out here who hopefully now the Bird and Bird brand resonates with them out here as much as it does in Europe.
Cool. And what's just for us to close that chapter here in our talk, and then we're going to talk more about DiBS. And what is the exact type of sports sort of work that you do there? Do you work a lot with players? Is that doping cases? Is that more commercial? Is that sponsorship, media rights? What is the core of what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when a lot of people hear sports lawyer, they think of they can think of lots of things, right? In my case, it's really corporate commercial work, which means complex contracts for sports businesses and sports media businesses. So think about things like media rights contracts for sports rights, like Premier League rights. It might be sponsorship deals. It might be data rights deals. So that's kind of on the sort of commercial side. There's also a very big sort of regulatory piece, which is hugely important to my clients, whether that's around sort of consumer law, advertising law, marketing law, that kind of thing. So it's quite a broad church of clients, but it's really sort of the big commercial players in sports business.
Cool. Listen, there's already several comments and questions here. I'm going to go through them in a minute. Thank you, everyone that is already participating. That's very much welcome. We will go to that in a minute. But I think the main topic of the discussion here today is diversity in sport, or in the business of sport, where we're working. I'm more on the events sort of side, you on the legal. But in fact, I mean, if I'm looking at the pictures of everyone, I think we interviewed about 30 people here. You won't find that many people of color or women or Asians. There's a big prominence of white male men being interviewed as well. Trying to
you're going to do yourself out of a job trial if you're not careful.
But I think that unfortunately it kind of also reflects very much what the industry is at the moment, and I imagine that's one of the reasons why you came up with that. But tell us about, I mean, the reason why you created DiBS, who's behind it. Let's talk a bit more about that. What is it that you want to accomplish with that?
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for asking that question. Firstly, whatever I articulate here will be always like a summary and of much better articulated words and phrases on the DiBS website, which is www.dibs.community. So do visit that if you want more information. Obviously, happy to share one here as well. So to answer your...
Just so there is a link in the description. If you're watching it on YouTube, there's already a link for DiBS there.
Perfect. Follow the link. So why did I start it? Well, I guess like a lot of industries, and having been in the sports business industry for a while, there is sort of I don't know if I say overrepresentation, but Caucasians, and especially Caucasian males, are very visible, right, in senior positions. And and there is an underrepresentation of candidates from diverse backgrounds. So those can be candidates from Black or Asian or minority ethnic backgrounds. It can be female candidates. It can be disabled candidates, right? So diversity can mean a huge number of things. I think that I really believe in our industry. I think it's first and most important to say that. And I say that because it's really important to understand the problem we're trying to solve and the reason we're trying to solve it, how we are. And I'll come to that in a moment. So if you think about it, there are some organizations in the world outside sport which have a real problem with things like structural racism, right? So I'm thinking about law enforcement forces are typical examples of this, right? Where they have historical issues with structural racism one way or another. Now, my belief and the belief of all of those of us, I think, who are in the DiBS network, is that happily our industry doesn't have that structural problem, i.e. what I mean is that everyone kind of wants it to be diverse. Everyone believes in the benefits of diversity. So we don't have to have that conversation around why it's good to have a diverse set of characters in your organization. The problem is that we just don't have it, right? Yeah. And so the question in my mind, and those who are in the DiBS network as well, is kind of how do you start solving that? What's your starting point? What can you solve? So for us, we're a group of people who all work in sports business, all in relatively senior positions, and all from Black, Asian, minority ethnic backgrounds. Now that's a sort of anglicized phrase. It's sort of known as BAME, B-A-M-E, and actually kind of neat, although it doesn't necessarily translate very well everywhere we go in the world, it sort of quite neatly captures what we're trying to achieve, which is we found we come at the problem from a particular angle, which is trying to increase Black, Asian, minority ethnic representation in the sports industry. Now we understand there are other organizations out there who are trying to solve other issues, so be it female representation, as we discussed, or maybe even disabled representation. Now, the issue for us is kind of how we go about that. What do we do? And the real thing is that we wanted to put in place tangible structures and pathways to ultimately enhance diversity in sports business. Now, there's lots of ways you can do that, right? You could have positive discrimination. You could use sort of things like you could advocate for things like the Rooney Rule, which they have in the US, where you have to interview a certain number of candidates from certain types of backgrounds for every position, right? With the hope that it creates greater diversity in those positions. Our sort of product, if you will, or what we do, is built on a belief in two things. One is the power of networks, and the other is the power of mentoring. Now, what we do is completely for free and relies completely on the goodwill of the mentors and the people who we work with. And so what are we doing? We've launched a sort of mentoring platform for younger members of the BAME community, so Black, Asian, minority ethnic community, who either just work at the kind of entry-level positions in sport, who really want to get into sport and have shown a desire to do that. Now, we pair those people on the one side with mentors on the other side, who are people like myself, people from those communities who are more senior in the industry, with the intention of turbocharging their careers through mentoring, through a structured mentoring program, which will last 6 months or so, and then building a network. So that's our starting point. And we hope to have, and we do already have, a fantastically brilliant and powerful set of mentors, and we hope to have a powerful set of mentors and mentees that go on to form the kind of the seeds of a fantastic Black, Asian, minority ethnic community in sports business, which can then ultimately help solve some of the problems we see with sort of underrepresentation of those communities in the industry. So that's a really, really long answer to your question, but I hope it gets us there.
No, I think you touched very clearly the why you did it, and also how you want to tackle it. As you mentioned, there are many ways that someone can think of how to tackle that issue. You chose mentoring. It's nice that you focus on one way that is very clear. I presume that's depending on how it develops, it may be that you can stretch your arms and provide other types of services in the future. But just to give a bit more details in terms of mentoring. So if we do have at the moment anyone from, BAME ethnicity or on that BAME group, how should I call it? That BAME group?
It's a great question. We talked a lot about what phrases and what phraseology to use. The ultimate answer is whatever you use is probably the right answer. So we'll just say the BAME community for now is good enough, I think.
BAME community, yeah. So if we do have, and I see here in the comments that we do, some people from minority backgrounds that are interested in sport, are entering the sport industry right now and are looking for mentors, they can go to the link that we have in the description, go to the website, sign up. Go us through how the process actually goes. So how many mentors do you have and how many mentees are you trying to help? So how does the selection process work?
Yeah, great question. Well, we've got about 10 mentors at the moment, all of whom I said are from that BAME community, and all of whom work in the sports business industry in sort of more senior roles. Now, what we're looking to do for the first cohort of mentees that we have is basically match one mentee with one mentor. So we'll take on around 10 mentees for our first cohort, which starts in a few weeks' time at the beginning of July. We match them one-on-one, and then when we ask people to apply for those positions, we try and make it as easy as possible, right? Because what we're looking for is people to demonstrate the things that we want, which is to show from the BAME background, B, sort of a junior entry level kind of candidates. They're under 30 years old is what we've defined for that. And then they have a strong desire to, or demonstrated sort of a commitment to the sports business industry. Now, that last sort of criteria is important to pause on, I think, because some people have said to me, is this a sort of way to get people jobs who sort of think about sport as a possible career? And my answer to them is sort of yes and no, really. There are some mentees who will accept who don't yet work in sport, but who have done a lot around that to try and work in sport. Maybe they've taken a FIFA Masters, which you're involved in, Joao, or maybe they've been through some other sort of postgraduate sports related discipline, or maybe they've just done some stuff outside their current role, which is relevant. So some people, I think, will be in that category of not yet working in the industry. But to be honest with you, the value that we're really going to add to people is people who are entry level positions in the industry already. And the reason I say that is because, as you say, at some point we hope to stretch our wings, and we're starting small, right? At some point we hope to stretch our wings and do more for more people. At the moment, everyone who works with DiBS and works for us is giving up their free time and as goodwill, right? No one's paying to be there, and so we want to start small and then sort of build from there. So the value that we can really add, and the value that our mentors as sort of senior sports business people can add, is really in helping turbocharge people's careers, making them the best candidates. So if you're an analyst at a broadcaster, or you're a junior account manager at a club or an agency or something like that, applying to this scheme is going to help you turbocharge your career. You're going to meet some fantastic people, and you're going to come out of it knowing more about your industry than you do now. I promise you that. So we'd encourage anyone and everyone to apply. We will always reply to everyone, even if they think, even if they're not the type, the sort of exactly the candidates we want. We'll always reply to you. We'll always try and help you in some regard. We're trying not just to turn people away. We've been lucky enough to get lots of applications, but as I said, we're an organisation that's focused on helping people. So that's what we intend to do one way or another.
No, that's great. And we here at iWorkinSport, we're very happy to try to support you as we can. So we'll be partnering with you. We'll be sending something on our next newsletters to everyone. We have some 6,000 people that receives our newsletter. So hopefully, I'm afraid I won't be able to take that many. But yeah, wait, how does that work? So each mentor will take only one mentee. Do you have a batch? Everybody's going to start at the same time, or are there already some mentors starting with their mentees now, and others will start later? How do you plan to do that? And if so, is there a deadline?
Yeah, so the first cohort of mentees will start in early July. At the start, we're just going to have one mentor to one mentee. Everyone will start at the same time. And the reason for that is because our program isn't simply just one-to-one mentoring. There's what we call group mentoring, which is where each of our mentors will give a sort of a talk or presentation, discussion session, information session to all of the mentees at once. And that's to try and build that community, but also give people that intel and that information on sectors of the industry they might not have otherwise come across. So give you an example of that, we've got two people who are very well versed in OTT and broadcast disruption. And so they're one of our sessions for all of our mentees will be on how OTT is disrupting broadcast, and to sort of really skill our mentees up, right? So if they're having conversation with people they meet in the industry, they can have an informed conversation about that. And that's a real value add for us. And so our program at the moment is looking to be about 6 months long. And so that'll be our first cohort, and we'll accept another one, we hope, straight after that. The question about sort of, and I know it seems like 10 is a small number to start, but we wanted to start small because we're going to have to learn through it. This is the first time we've done this, right? We want to make it great for every single batch, and we're going to have to take learnings from this into the next. So start small, get bigger incrementally, and hopefully add value to everyone who joins every single one of our cohorts.
That's great. And there's already a few more comments here that I'm going to share with you. In terms of your vision, so for us to understand where do you want to get with that, with the DiBS. So imagine what is it that you want to achieve in the first year, but then if you already had a strategic conversation with your partners, how do you see maybe in 5 years, what is the kind of things that you want to be doing?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's something we've thought a lot about as a sort of mentor group amongst the 10 of us. And the answer is, in the short term, what we really want to deliver is just an excellent program, right? And to give that first batch and that first cohort of mentees the best possible experience they can, such that we start to form the basis of that network going forwards. So, and you know, if you think about the sort of compounding effects of how networks work, how they get bigger and stronger, our aim is really just to really give that a solid foundation in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, as we run our cohorts through. Where we go in the long term, we don't know. We aim to be part of that wider diversity debate in our industry, and hopefully contribute positively to it. How we do that, to be honest, it's far too early to say, I think, but we definitely hope to be a part of that diversity debate for a long time to come, and hopefully a resource that people can draw upon, hopefully a group of people who are excited about and sort of advocates for diversity, and then also a bit of a sort of rallying cry that people can sort of be allies to, and say and say to people, this is, you know, a tangible thing which is going to change in our industry, and it engenders change in our industry. I mean, the long-term goals are obviously to increase diversity as a whole in the industry, but it's very difficult to measure that, right? It's difficult to measure headcount, etc., etc. Is it possible to know that someone got a job, for example, because we you know, they came through our program? Maybe not. But realistically, we just want to make the people who come through our program the best they can be, to be the best candidates. And as I say, to just be part of that wider diversity debate, because we come at it from one fairly narrow angle, from the Black, Asian, minority, ethnic side of things. And it may be that there are other organisations out there who we can partner with in future to sort of do more, right? But as I said, we're working with limited time and resource at the moment, and so we're doing what we can with what we've got.
That's great. Let me just give a shout out to a few people that are commenting here. We're streaming on LinkedIn and on YouTube, so there's a lot of people watching on LinkedIn as well. So Stefan is in Munich. Thank you, Stefan. Ma is in Mumbai, India. Olumide Babatunde Fazina, he's in Montreal in Canada. Dennis is in Ukraine. Hello. Oscar, just saying hi, left his LinkedIn contact here. Hello, Oscar. Thank you for being here with us. There is a question from Regina, but it came in Portuguese. I will translate that for you in a second.
You're going to have to, yeah.
Yeah, there is Malu in Brazil. So this is fantastic. Xavier, thanks for watching. Who else is here? Gabriel, excellent discussion. Thank you, Gabriel. Thanks for the comment. I think that's Otacílio just translated Regina's question. How can sports contribute to ending discrimination by promoting social media and increasing respect and diversity? I'm not sure if there's already the answer in the question there, but you might want to comment on that. If you want, I can leave.
I can see it on my screen, but thank you for the question. I mean, to be honest with you, it's a huge question, right? And it would be sort of wrong of me to comment more widely than really in the sort of narrow band in which we're trying to operate, which is really in the sports business community. So I would say that I think it's important to reinforce that I don't believe there's necessarily discrimination in the sports business community as a whole. I really believe in our industry and I believe in the people in it. What we're trying to solve is a representation problem, right? I think if we talk about wider sport, I mean, it's not just a problem for sport. I believe it's a problem for society, and how you solve that. You know, if there were a magic bullet, I would be the first to jump on it and try and spread the word. But to be honest, I don't think there is an easy answer to these things. It's social attitudes. It's lots and lots and lots of things. And I do hope that the issues that are raised in the question around discrimination in wider society can be solved just through a greater understanding of different communities and an appreciation for how different people live their lives.
Cool, thank you for that. There's a few more people saying hi here. So Emmanuel in Maryland, in the US. So we go from India to the US, Asia to Americas, all over the place. Audrey asks you a question: are you limited to a certain region at the moment?
That is a fantastic question.
Applications for mentorship.
Yeah, no, it's a really fair question, a really fantastic one actually, and something I probably should have covered at the start. So I guess a lot of the following of iWorkinSport will be from the sort of more traditional hubs, I guess, of sport. So in Europe and to an extent in Asia. Those are the areas in which our mentors are from. Our mentors are we have mentors in China, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, in continental Europe, and in the UK. So what that means is our mentors are really best placed to help candidates who work in Europe and Asia. We don't at the moment really have the capability to mentor those coming from North America. That's not because we don't want to, it's just because North America and it is sort of an industry in itself, and it's a huge region to cover. And so our mentors in our program at the moment are from Europe and from Asia. So we welcome applications from anywhere and everywhere. Like I said earlier, we won't simply blank you or say no. We'd always look to help you if we can. There are people we can refer you to, and it may be in time that we can go and cover some of those areas that of geographies that we don't already cover, and we hope to do some future.
And what about languages? Because I presume that your mentors are multilingual, coming from all diversity backgrounds. Are you starting and doing only in English, or you might get if you have a Chinese mentor, as you mentioned, he could take a Chinese person or do it in French or Spanish or whatever. How do you do in terms of language?
Well, my Portuguese is terrible, Joao, so apologies for that. But some of our mentors do speak different languages. The program is entirely in English. We do have sort of local language capabilities, if that makes sense. So we have one of our mentors is a fluent Mandarin speaker. But at the moment, the program is in English, because what we want to create, I guess, is a network of people who can all interact with one another. And I think for better or for worse, at the moment, the sort of lingua franca of sport is English. I know French would maybe have a claim to that in some of the places in Europe, but so English is really a prerequisite for our program.
Right. Thanks for that. Just a few more people saying hi here. Daniel Guimarães, Thank you for being here with us. Anna says very informative. He's in Trinidad and Tobago. Oh, Oscar like the Totti shirt somewhere in the background here, there. Possibly a Roma fan. Gabriele Liberazzi, thanks for being here with us. And Regina, thanks you for your answer to her question. So there are, I mean, when you talk about sort of minorities working in sport, I imagine that there are many, many challenges, and you already alluded to some of them there. But yeah, let's talk about them. So what are the first ones that you think should be tackled, and how? I mean, you're mentoring, you're mentoring your mentees. But if we're talking about the challenges that minorities face, what are they? What are the most important ones, and how? I mean, can that be solved?
That's a really hard question in some ways, but a really good one to ask. I think that in some situations, and as I alluded to earlier, certain types of organisation outside sport may have more sort of structural issues, be it structural racism and those kind of things, which I believe and like to think don't exist inside sport to the degree they exist in other places. Yet everywhere in the world there will always be problems. So I think the starting point is that there will be very small sort of personal issues, right? Some of which may have a sort of a diversity dimension to them. For me, the issues that we really sort of encounter most, I guess, in sport. And one of the best things about sport, I guess, actually, maybe to look at this a different way, one of the best things about sport, I think, is that working in sport business has a relatively unique, if slightly homogenous in some ways, culture. It's a sporting culture, right? It's a background, it's an understanding of the product. Now, what that creates in some ways is a little bit of lack of diversity of thinking, and it encourages people through unconscious bias to hire people who sound like them, who look like them, who think like them, who are from the same places as them, who went to the same schools or universities as them. And what that unconscious bias does is reinforce that sort of lack of diversity in the industry. So for me, that the kind of biggest issue, if you were to sort of try and put your finger on it, it would really be around finding ways to address the problem of sort of unconscious bias, right? And making people aware of what that means and what that looks like, and what that means for accessibility to industries and to promotions and that kind of thing. Because frankly, I like to think that most, if not all people in our business are not flat out racist, right? But everyone has unconscious biases. I have unconscious biases, you do as well. And learning to understand those and appreciate what that means and appreciate how that biases your own decisions is really important. And that's what diversity is all about at the end of the day. It's about creating diversity of not just sort of faces and whatever. It's really about diversity of thought and opinion, and being accepting of people from different backgrounds who maybe don't sound like you or don't have the same ideas as you, or maybe challenge you in a slightly different way. It's becoming aware of that and being able to engage with that in a meaningful way.
Right. And any advice of then how to do that? So we have non-minorities like myself, and then you already told me the kind of thing that I should be aware of, and or it's just that's the point. It's just being aware, and once you are aware of that's happening, that's you are in a group of friends or you're in a board, that okay, you look to your side and there's everybody looks like you, there's something wrong. It's just awareness, or there's any other advice for people to become aware?
I guess far be it from me to be sort of handing out like advice to people. I guess what I would do is maybe flip it and say, how would I approach it, maybe, and how would I think about it if I was in that position?
Yeah.
And maybe awareness of it is, and people can take from that what they want, really. But I guess being aware of a problem is one thing. Taking active steps to change the status quo is really hard. And I mean, at the basic level, I had an interview the other day for an intern who was coming into or some interns who are interviewing to do internships at my work, right? And I was acutely aware when I was doing those internship interviews that the interns who, because I'm in Hong Kong, some of the people who apply have been to more international institutions, international universities. Some have been educated locally in Hong Kong. And I was very, very acutely aware that I myself was biasing naturally towards those who had been to westernized institutions because they articulated their answers, their problems, their sort of their analysis in a very particular way, which is very natural to how I am, right? And what that meant was it was much more difficult for me to assess the merits of someone who maybe wasn't from a more similar background to me. And so what I have had to do was really challenge myself to think, well, actually, strip away the fact I find it slightly easier to talk to the guy or girl who went to university in the UK, and try and look at it on its merits. And it's to be honest, it's really, really hard. Like I can't tell you how hard it is to challenge yourself like that, because you don't know if you're second guessing yourself, you don't know if you're doing the right thing, you don't know if you're in fact favoring someone who maybe is a less good candidate because it feels right to do that. I mean, if you're aware of something, that's great. To then challenge yourself to think about it and come to a reasonable conclusion, that's the best you can do. You're not always going to get it right. You're not always going to get it wrong. But the more you're aware of it and the more you challenge yourself to think about it, I genuinely believe, and I've said this a lot in this interview, but I genuinely believe that people in our industry are generally good people, right? And they want the right things. So just being aware of it and challenging yourself to think about it and engage with that, for most people is frankly as much as they can do in their daily jobs. And if you get the chance to be involved in a bigger initiative, whether it's a particular diversity initiative or something else at your work, or putting in place structures which make your workplace more diverse, then fantastic, absolutely do that. But that shouldn't be something that's expected of everyone. Absolutely not.
Right. No, I agree 100%. Fantastic. Actually, here, Philip Mike says that's a great comprehensive answer, Alex. I think he meant the previous answer, and I just second that for the one that you just gave. We have Humberto Moreira, Roberto saying hi too. There is Lewis. Interesting topic. I certainly would be interested in the mentorship program.
Send an application, Lewis.
Yeah, it's from Zimbabwe. There's a link. Yeah, Lewis is on YouTube, so there's a link there for you, Lewis. And if you're watching on LinkedIn, well, yeah, it's what's the URL again, Alex? It's DiBS.
www.dibs.community. And you'll find .community, and you'll find on there our mentoring page, which will tell you how to apply. There'll be an FAQ page which tells you all about the organisation and answers some of the more detailed questions. I would say though, if you're thinking about putting in an application, please do it as soon as possible, because our first cohort is kicking off very soon and we're reviewing applications now. If your application is received after we sort of select our first cohort, we'll automatically get back to you and let you know that you're in the running for the second cohort, which will start either later this year or early next. So welcome to submit an application whenever you want, but if you'd like to be part of our first cohort, please do it as soon as you can.
That's great. Let me ask you a few general questions now about career. We're at iWorkinSport. It's we really talk about developing career in sport. What is like the general advice that you normally give to one that tells you, yeah, I would like to develop a career in sports? And may I ask that, is that a different advice if they are from with a minority background or not, or is that the same advice?
I hope it would be the same advice. Is the short answer, because like I said, I believe in the industry we work in. It kind of depends what background you're coming from, in the sense of what professional background you're coming from, what jobs you're looking for. If you're coming from a profession like I am, so law or maybe finance, where you maybe you have a certification, then the best thing you can do is go and get the base skills in that profession. So in my case, be a great lawyer first, then look for your job in sport. If you're in finance, be a great finance guy first, and then find your job in sport. I think that applies to lots of other things as well. Whether you're an ops guy or like an account management type thing, there are ways to go and get experience outside sport that work really well inside sport. But to be honest with you, and I mentioned at the start, one of the sort of founding pillars of the things that we believe in at DiBS is the power of a network. And I will tell you that network is what got me my first job in sport. I tried to make to network with people who were lawyers in sport. In this case, people who had a law firm who eventually gave me a job. And you just have to work at it. You have to go out there and meet people. The thing that will get you a job, and as I get older, then this is more and more true. The things that get you jobs is the people who you know. Sadly, it's not necessarily just your CV which does that, but in some ways that's really empowering, because what it means is it's within your own gift to go and make those connections, to go and meet those people, to put yourself at the head of the queue. So I guess my advice in a nutshell is be great at your job, whatever it is, and then go and make the connections in the place that you might want to work. And eventually, if you work hard enough at that connections point, something will come along. But you have to be, I mean, in lots of things, you have to be willing to make sacrifices for it, right? So it might be a pay cut, it might be a sort of a title shift, but if you're willing to make the sacrifices and do the work, you'll get there.
Cool. Yeah. Do you know a lawyer called Daniel G?
Yeah. I've read. I think his book is probably on the shelf behind me.
Right. Great. Yeah. So he's been on the show as well, and his advice was very similar to yours. So when you said that, I was wondering if that's a lawyer's thing.
Yeah, we all talk to each other behind the scenes, and we have the same answer to everything. But I read Daniel's book, and
we had other guests saying a very similar thing, and I myself, I think I give very similar advice as well. Sometimes people focus too much on gotta kind of work in sports from, they finish university, that's what they want to do, and maybe that works out if they start doing something else first.
Absolutely right. And there's lots of ways in. And it's a great career. So we both love it, right?
Yeah. Would you have an idea in terms of skills that are in demand, or only a sort of, for lawyers, of course, lawyers are always in demand, but if let's say you're mentoring someone that really wants to work in sport, has, is multi-skilled, is not a lawyer, is there any advice that you would give him? Listen, maybe you should go this path because your chances increase.
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think it's hard to generalize about kind of what is in demand from time to time in industry, because at certain points, for example, right, if you're a software developer who's really good at creating OTT platforms, you're going to be pretty well in demand now. But the fundamental point is this, which is that understanding what the size and shape of the industry is and what the job functions are is actually quite a challenge, I think, when you're outside the industry. So understanding the difference between someone who's an account manager, right, and then someone who might work in a marketing team is quite hard, or maybe a partnerships guy or a sponsorship guy. It's quite hard when you're outside the industry, but you only understand that by talking to people and learning about their jobs. And everyone in the world has different skill sets, right? Some people are fantastic extroverts and they're great at selling. Some people are wonderful creative types, right? And are exactly the kind of people who you want in your marketing teams to create interesting campaigns or activations. Now, the best thing you can do if you're not sure is go and talk to as many people as you can in different job functions and work out where your skills fit best. There are loads and loads and loads of different roles in sports business. And there's lots of different types of people. There's wonderful creative people, wonderful salespeople, wonderful lawyers, wonderful finance guys, wonderful managers, right? Wonderful ops people. And you just have to go and find the path which suits you and fits your skill set and fits your experience. and there'll be a job for you there at the end of the day if you work hard enough and are willing to make the sacrifices, like we said.
Yeah, excellent advice. Thank you for that. There's a very good question here from Audrey Matadis. So is showing sports organizations that they will profit or make money in an approach to tackle the issue of minority? I think that's what she's asking is there studies that show that inclusive organizations are more profitable? Is there any correlation? Is there any study that's could also encourage companies? It's a way to encourage. It's not only because it's the right thing to do, but if in the end of the day they are profitable too, it's another encouragement. Is there any correlation? Is there any study about that?
Well, I'm going to give you a controversial answer to this one, Audrey. Yes, there are studies which show that diversity, there is what's known as diversity dividend, right, which increases profits or revenues or whatever your metric is that you judge a company by. There are also studies which show the opposite. So there are studies that were done in sort of late 20th century in the US, which show that some of the most successful companies came from incredibly homogeneous or run by incredibly homogeneous boards of directors in terms of background, familial ties, etc., etc. So I guess the way I think about it is, if you try and justify diversity by a profit motive or a revenue motive or some other financial metric, you're always going to have someone who's going to be able to show you the opposite. It's a bit like those surveys which tell you a glass of wine a day is good, and then the next week you read one which says a glass of wine a day is bad. There'll always be a counter argument. So for me, it's actually the best way to do it is to just remove that argument altogether and just say, hey, what do we stand for, right? Wherever you're from in the world, it's likely to be a relatively diverse place. We want the business we work in to reflect the wider population, the wider community. There's no reason why it shouldn't. And it's just a values thing, right? It's a profit. To use a sort of overused phrase, it's a purpose thing, not a profit thing. It's nice to think, for me, and this is, like I said, a slightly controversial view. For me, it's not nice to think that purpose leads to profit directly. Unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily been borne out in every industry and in every way, and there'll always be someone who has contradictory evidence. So I think you just have to you have to define your purpose and say, this is what I stand for, and it's a good thing, and we're going to make it happen because it's a good thing.
Cool. Thank you for the very honest answer. And so when we talk about diversity, or maybe there are different interpretations. So at DiBS, when you're talking about diversity, what exactly are you talking about? Is that gender? Is that and skin color? For instance, is it correct to say race? Some people say, in some cultures, they say, well, you shouldn't call it race. It's a racial thing. Is it not? And how about culture? The cultural diversity, is that inclusive in your goals, what you're working on? Because you're in Asia now, so big shift culturally, I suppose. So tell us a bit, make it a bit clearer for us to understand whenever we're talking about diversity, equality, inclusion, what are the actual topics we're covering?
Sure. Can happily do that. I guess from our perspective anyway, from the DiBS perspective, DiBS is really about helping that what we call the Black, Asian, minority ethnic community BAME. That is only one element of a huge diversity issue, right? As we discussed earlier, there's lots of different groups who are underrepresented in sports business. I guess the thing that kind of follows from that really is that diversity is it means different things in different places in the world. So it means a very different thing in Asia or in Hong Kong to what it means in China, to what it means in Japan, to what it means in Zurich or London or Frankfurt or New York or San Francisco, right? And so to answer the first part of that question, the language that we use, we thought a lot about whether we use the BAME phrase, Black, Asian, minority ethnic or not. We felt it captured as best we could what we were trying to, the group of people we were trying to help. The reality is that that phrase doesn't necessarily travel very well. There'll be people out there who disagree with the use of that phrase entirely. I I guess what I'd say is there is no easy or right answer, I'm afraid, to the sort of language you should use. And as you say, something that seems perfectly acceptable in Zurich might be very unacceptable in New York, if you use the same phrase. And so we are doing the best we can with that. I think that the best thing you can do when you're moving around a globalized world is just be sensitive to the phraseology and the sort of cultural idioms of where you're going, and that's just a really hard thing. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong, and you have to accept that. On your question, your last question around sort of cultural diversity, I think this goes back to something I said earlier, which is really that where this all comes out, where this all gets to, is diversity, assuming everyone is equally or proportionally represented, right? Let's assume that for a moment. The real issue then is, do you have diversity of thought in an organization? If you have a series of kind of sort of people who are sort of almost tokenized, right? So you have a female on the board, you have a guy from an Asian background on the board, et cetera, right? If they're all from the same background and the same thinking, same school, same university, you don't really truly have diversity, right? What you really want is people from different backgrounds and different thought processes, and to get that diversity of thought. Now, where we are, I guess, in the world at the moment is that the sort of Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, that's one lens through which you can try and encourage greater diversity of thought ultimately. And frankly, I believe by having more Black, Asian, minority, ethnic people involved in sports business, you'll get a wider variety of thought and a diversity of thought. In the long and distant future, we might think about diversity in a completely different way to we think about it now. But from where I sit, there are some really easy, simple problems to solve first, and then you move on to the harder stuff around what is diversity of thought, how do we encourage it, et cetera.
Okay, understood. So Anand is saying goodbye, saying that enjoyed very much so far. Thank you. Come back next week. Daniela Negreda here in Lausanne says hi too. Alex, we're coming to the end. Normally I ask our guests to make a few recommendations for people that are here until now. They may be interested in books that you want to recommend, or a book or a blog or a podcast. So is there any book that you would like to recommend?
Sure, I'll go for. I had to think about this earlier before I came on because I don't like being caught out. But I'm currently reading a book called The Chimp Paradox, which is written by a British doctor called Steve Peters, who does a lot of work with Olympians. So it'll be kind of interesting for the sports fans out there. And it's about how you kind of manage your mind and how you, I guess, compartmentalize things or understand the sort of chimp in your brain that makes you do things and act emotionally rather than act how you would like to. So that's a really good read. I've not finished it yet, but really enjoyed it. So would encourage anyone who's wondering how Olympic athletes in Britain prepare for the Olympics to pick it up.
Cool. Very good. Any blog or podcast as well? Do you listen to podcasts? Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of people, podcasts are fab, right? They're a great way to get free content. But I really love for sports business. I really love one called Unofficial Partner, which is really fantastic and would encourage. It's a really great way to learn about the industry.
They're currently doing a series with Patrick Nelly. Is a friend, has been a guest in the show as well. It's called the Patrick Nelly Diaries. So I recommend that people go and check that out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great podcast, great way to learn about the industry. And for blogs, there's an American investor / VC called Matthew Ball, Ball. He writes a lot about the American entertainment industry and the media industry, and his sort of online essays, which you'll find, I think they're matthewball.vc or something like that is a website. His online essays are really great. Another insight into the US media landscape, which I don't understand loads about, but they're really interesting reads and spark a lot of ideas for where the industry's going and sort of help you get that crystal ball out and gaze into the future.
Right. Listen, great. I'll check that out. Is that Matthew Ball?
Yeah, Ball. And if I got that wrong, I apologize. I'm pretty sure.
That's okay. Listen, Alex, I want to thank you very much for being here. I think that was a super insightful conversation. We wanted to have that space to talk about diversity in the business of sport, the topic in general, and the community that you created with your colleagues. As I said, we're happy to support it. As you could see, we do have a very diverse audience, coming from all over the place. And this is one of the things that we're really proud of. And we're working to keep it that way, and to, the more, the better, really. And I mean, let's keep in touch. Let's keep sort of collaborating. We'll send that out in our newsletter too. So I invite everyone to also visit iWorkinSport.com. There is, again, are you interested in the mentorship program? There is a link in the description below if you're watching it on YouTube. Otherwise, just go to dibs.community. That's right. That's right. And any last message before we do that? I want to say hi as well to Diana Ingetschwiller, a friend of ours watching on LinkedIn. And Philip Mike said that was awesome. So he really enjoyed it. Thanks, Philip. Thanks to everyone that was watching here with us. Alex, any last message?
Well, firstly, thanks to those who watched. It's always a pleasure. And to Joao, love being here. This has been really enjoyable. Thank you so much to iWorkinSport. A huge fan and a supporter of what you do. And really enjoyed it. So thanks very much. And look forward to hearing more.
All right. Okay, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I see you hopefully next week. Bye-bye, everyone.